Another Bendy and the Ink Machine theory? You betcha! Hey yo Prodigies, Charles here, and in this video I'll be sharing with you a Bendy and the Ink Machine theory. This one will explain why Sammy Laurence may be Boris the Wolf. If you would like more horror game theories, remember to subscribe and tap that bell, as on top of the many theories I've already made, there will be more to come. And just before we begin, if you can't watch this video all the way through right now, remember to tap add to and select watch later to save your progress, or just do it for fun. Let's start with what we know. We know that Sammy Laurence is the director of music at Joey Drew's cartoon studio. We also know that Sammy has been setting up rituals in order to sacrifice Henry in Chapter 2. In Chapter 1, we see the corpse of Boris the Wolf lying upright on an operating table, but in Chapter 2, Boris the Wolf appears before Henry right at the end. And finally, Boris the Wolf is a character that would feature in the cartoon Bendy and Sheep Songs. Got all those facts? Now let's bring it all together. Sammy Laurence is the director of music at Joey Drew's cartoon studio, and so would be in charge of all of the music that would play during the Bendy cartoons. He would therefore not only be familiar with just the songs in the Bendy cartoons, but also their lyrics, as he would have to keep track of each performance and make sure that they would be put in the right places in the cartoons. Throughout the game, we get hints that the workers at the cartoon studio had to go through some kind of strange rituals in which they had to provide offerings to gods, but it is unclear as to why. We have suggested in previous theories that these rituals were performed to transform the workers at the cartoon studio into Joey Drew's cartoon characters. If you would like to see why, check out my Is Joey Drew Bendy theory, which will appear in the card in the top right. If this is the case, each worker would have transformed into a cartoon that they shared some kind of connection with, such as Susie Campbell becoming Alice Angel, as Sammy would have offered his vinyl record of The Lighter Side of Hell, of which there are heaps of musical scores throughout the music department. This would be his connection to the cartoon character he would have turned into. Many Prodigies believe that because Sammy Laurence can be seen wearing overalls just like Boris, he must have turned into Boris. I personally had a hard time believing this at first, as it didn't make sense to me that Sammy, who didn't have a passion for writing his stupid cartoon songs, and was really crabby about work when Joey Drew installed a pump in his office, had any passion for or connection to Boris. Also, the overalls that Sammy wears look slightly different to the ones that Boris is seen wearing. However, there is more evidence that Sammy could be Boris. Sammy being the director of music means that he would be familiar with the songs in the Bendy cartoons to the point that it would drive him crazy. In Chapter 2, we see him roaming the studio chanting the Sheep 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 song. On the only poster that we've seen so far of a cartoon that features Boris, the cartoon itself is called Bendy in Sheep Songs. Perhaps Sammy is quoting a sheep song from this cartoon because it is one that he connected with the most. This also eliminates Sammy being Bendy or Alice Angel as an option, as although Sammy would have written songs like The Lighter Side of Hell, given that Bendy's a demon and Alice is an angel demon, it doesn't seem to be a song that he recalls or wants to recall in his inky prison body. Besides, we hear Bendy crushing Sammy into a puddle of ink as he tries to sacrifice Henry to Bendy anyway. Also, Susie Campbell clearly has a strong connection with Alice Angel. Unfortunately, we've seen in Chapter 1 that Boris is well and truly dead. How can it be possible that Sammy is Boris if he's walking around the studio just fine, while Boris is knocked out on an upright table on the upper floors of the studio? Maybe this is actually exactly the evidence we needed. After Bendy crushes Sammy and Henry escapes from Bendy, Henry encounters Boris casually walking around the corner, as if Boris was never harmed at all. In my Why is Boris alive theory, it was suggested that there are either two Borises, or that Boris may be another of the workers at the studio who comes to help Bendy. If you want to know more, tap the card that will appear in the top right. While those cases may be true, many Prodigies pointed out that Sammy might actually have been sacrificed by Bendy to bring Boris back to life, and this is quite possible. Many Prodigies believe that Sammy's heart was used to fill the hole in Boris's chest, allowing him to come back to life as we returned the power to the ink machine that allowed Boris to get ink flowing through its body. With a pumping heart full of mysterious ink magic, Boris would have come back to life and roamed the halls of the studio again if this happened. I think this may be partially true. If Sammy's heart was required to bring Boris back and transform him into Boris, I think Sammy's entire body would have been consumed to achieve this. Why? Remember when Boris was propped up on the table in Chapter 1? Boris's chest looked as if it had bursted open, and I think that Sammy might have been the one that burst out of Boris's chest in the first place. Why else would it say "Who's laughing now" and "Dreams come true" on the walls? Sammy refers to his body as an inky prison, and would have attempted to return to his old body in two stages. The first stage would be to get out of his prison within a prison, Boris's body. The second stage would be to release himself from the cocoon-like form that we see him in Chapter 2. This is where Henry came in. Either sacrificing Henry would have let Sammy swap their bodies, which may explain his slight hesitation when he recognized his old co-worker before the ritual, or sacrificing Henry would materialize Sammy's body and cause Henry to become trapped in Boris. This process may also support the reason why Sammy would have been sneaking around in Chapter 1, leading Henry to fix the machine. However, when Sammy tried to perform the sacrifice, Bendy may have chosen Sammy to be sacrificed instead, despite all of his devotion, Bendy-senpai, out of anger for what Sammy had done, and to return the effects of Joey Drew's first ritual to normal. Who's laughing now, Sammy? Definitely Bendy. As a consequence of all of this, Sammy would become Boris once more and come to greet us after we escape Bendy's wrath. How would he have gotten there so quickly though? Easy. The elevator that Henry walks towards at the end of Chapter 2. What do you think? Prodigies, I think that this could possibly explain a lot about what's happening at the studio, and it isn't pretty. All of this suggests that the ink minions we face could actually be lower workers at the studio who had hardly felt any passion or connection to any of the Toon characters. This may also mean that each of the major characters are in inky prisons within their Toon prison bodies, and they want to return back to normal to end their suffering. Remember to subscribe and tap that bell for more interesting horror game theories and secrets. If you love horror game theories, be sure to check the description for a link to all of the theories and secrets, and Prodigies, I really hope that these series help you to expand on how you think, so it can help you with how you go about your thinking in your daily lives. Remember to check back every weekend for a new video. See ya! Prodigies. I realize that Bendy and the Ink Machine is only in its early stages, and many things will change from now until the final version, including the chapters we've seen so far themselves. I only made this theory because many of the Prodigies wanted to hear my perspective on what's actually going on in the game, and future chapters changing everything aside, the renovation of Chapter 2 could possibly change everything. How do we know what Joey Drew's intentions are? How will the other characters that we will inevitably meet affect the plot? We'll have to wait and see future chapters to find out. Remember to subscribe and tap that bell for more cool and interesting horror game theories.